Great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dhamma to teach us how to be suffering and attend bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto sucedoye ulahuri samyao samputosye.
Namo sadanto sucetoye alahati samyo sambuddhosye.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿皆如来真实义。I'll give you a line. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a million eons. But now we see and hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛. Please come in, everybody. The Dharma request is concluded and complete. Come on in. Find yourself a place to sit. We've got cushions on the front. And I'm going to ask anybody who's sitting next to a vacant seat to please scoot over and make that one next to you available. We're going to be short of seats on the men's side, which is a good phenomenon. That's a good trend. We're happy about that. And welcome folks who are joining us online, either in person as the lecture goes on, or later in the archive version on YouTube. So we've got everybody welcomed. Let's turn to the title of the sutra, which is on the front cover here, and chant along. We're going to invoke spiritual presence. This is our invocation. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Hai Hui. Excuse me. Here we go. Please, in your text, turn to page 56 and 57. 56, 57. We're down at the very bottom. We've read this passage before, but in order to make sense of what we're facing tonight, we need to take it all in one breath. So we're going to repeat the paragraph in the Chinese side on page 56. It's the third line from the bottom. On the English side, page 57, it's disciples of the Buddha in terms of difficulty. Okay, I'll give you a line. 佛子譬如有二世界，一处杂然，一处清净，是二中间，难可得过。唯除菩萨，有大方便，神通愿力。佛子 let's see. Stop at that point. Over to the right. Let's read it together in unison. Ready? Disciples of the Buddha. In terms of difficulty, this is like having two worlds, one defiled and one pure. It is difficult to go back and forth between the two worlds unless one commands the strength of vows and the psychic abilities necessary to accomplish great skillful means. Okay. We're in mid-chapter, and we're talking about a bodhisattva, and the bodhisattva is on what's called the seventh ground. It's a course of learning. It's like a curriculum, and the bodhisattva is learning what the seventh ground bodhisattva learns in order to teach people. In teaching people, his purpose is to save them from suffering that they may not recognize, that they're doing things that winds up biting them. And he sees that. The thing about a bodhisattva is they're already awake to that point. They have, what is our idiom? One eye open in a land of the blind, right? You know that American idiom? Somebody where everyone is blind, this bodhisattva's got one eye open. So he can see things that everybody else doesn't see. Another idiom, another example would be, we'd say somebody who has his head out of the water. If you've ever been swimming underwater and you can't tell northeast, southwest, you can't tell where you are until you kind of bring your head up above the water and oh, look, there are the mountains, there's the shore, that's the ocean. I want to go that way because that's where the land is. Because you poked your head up, you're orient, you know where you are. Bodhisattva is just like that. He or she is somebody who's already aware of the ocean of samsara, the ocean of suffering, birth and death. He or she has awakened to the process. In the Chinese idiom is really great. It's called lai ming qu bai. Lai qu ming bai. The bodhisattva is clear about where they've come, and they know where they're going. Now that's wisdom. In contemporary idiomatic buzz language, we'd say the bodhisattva is enlightened. That's pretty ambiguous what that might mean, but we're going to interpret it this way. We're going to use the word awakened. If everybody's asleep, the bodhisattva's awake. He can look out, everybody's sleeping. This person understands their situation, right? So instead of, there's another quality the bodhisattva has, which is instead of saying, oh, cool, I'm awake, I can essentially get over on everybody else, bodhisattva says, no, I really remember what it was like to be asleep. I'm going to wake everybody else up. I really remember what it was like to be drowning in the trackless ocean. I'm going to get us all to the shore. I remember what it was like to be blind. I want everybody to open their eyes together. So that's the quality of a bodhisattva. And here in the seventh ground, he or she is getting instructions in advanced living beings awakening techniques, right? This is high-level bodhisattva dharma. This is already master's level golfing competition, right? This bodhisattva is already skillful, but at the seventh ground, he's or she is learning the power tools, the real techniques for waking people up. Okay, so far so good. Now, we've talked a lot about how the seventh ground is a crossroads. It's a turning point. Bodhisattva could go this way or that way, and whatever decision he makes, things are going to be different from here on. From the beginning to this crossroads, things were pretty much the same, pretty much consistently moving forward and progressing. But at the seventh stage, something happens. And in a word, it's called irreversibility. 无退转, abhibhajya in Chinese, abhivartika in Sanskrit. Something happens at the seventh stage. The bodhisattva actually changes. There's a transformation of his inner life. Consciousness goes to wisdom. Boy, oh boy. We've been doing things, I've been using my guitar to make an octave sound. People have heard me do that. The string, when you just vibrate it from point to point, makes a vibration depending on whatever pitch it is. Let's say it's A440, this guy, without the capo. A440 sounds like this. That's a reliable A440 anywhere in the universe. 440 vibrations per second cycling. But if you do this to it, you bisect the string and you pull a note down that is still A440, but it's an octave higher. It's 8 tones higher. That other note was always there, but you have to put your finger at the 12th fret, which is exactly halfway between the nut and the saddle. So the wisdom the bodhisattva is transforming into was always there in his or her mind, but until he put it through the fires of Dharma practice, he didn't have that note available, even though it was potentially always there. Okay, so that's a pretty good analogy. You get a sense of it's not superhuman, it's not extraterrestrial, it's not long ago and far away, and it's not the privileged possession of a certain class of people. Anybody can do this if you take the training, if you do the bodhisattva practices instead of the other things you could be doing, right? So that's the idea. Now, we're in a special part of the seventh ground that's talking about something that hasn't been discussed before, which is called effortless practice, 无功用行. And effortful practice is everything prior to this. After the bodhisattva turns his discriminating consciousness, essentially binary dharma, duality, right, wrong, true, false, me and others. At this point, it flips over if he continues. And as we go into the 7th ground and then hit the 8th ground, we're going to discover that the sutra shows some, not to say concern, but there are cultivators who at this point don't cross over. They don't do it. They don't leap over. They instead stay on the consciousness side. Because why? This is hard. It's difficult. It's difficult to go across. And the reason is what I gathered. This is my theory. It's not my experience, right? The reason why it's difficult is, according to ordinary reality, you're going crazy. That's why it's hard. You seems like you're nuts. Everything that you knew heretofore is wrong. And that means everything about night and day, up and down, north and south, good and bad, wise, stupid, all these dichotomies, all these dualities somehow suddenly get flipped on their head. And you have to continue facing that challenge of, am I crazy? Okay, that's what's at stake. Okay, so we're just at that point where Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva, our guide in the 7th ground, is introducing this notion to the person who's standing in for everybody in the assembly, asking questions. So this Avatamsaka Sutra section is a dialogue. It's like a Socratic dialogue where Alcibiades is talking to Socrates about, about truth, and Socrates is saying, "Oh, very good. I'm glad you asked that question, but have you ever thought of it this way?" "No, I never have." "Well, if you think of it this way, you'll notice that." That's the Plato's dialogues. And the dialogue between the two bodhisattvas is very similar. And this particular chapter was more interactive than most because our speaker, Vajra Treasury, didn't want to explain. He had all kinds of doubts about it. "No, I don't want to talk about that. They're not going to get it. They're going to doubt it. They're going to slander it. They're going to go away feeling like it was not for them or something." It took the Buddha to say, "It's okay, go ahead. Tell them the truth. Let them get it. Trust them," right? So that was how it was set up. Okay, we're in the conversation. Vajra Treasury has been answering a question that came up just before, which was, where do you cultivate the Bodhi share dharmas that then bring you to effortless practice? Which ground? The answer was all the grounds, but on the 7th ground is where it's the best. That's the place where it really gets good. Okay? So now we get an analogy. We get a picture to try to describe what it's like when this shift happens. Disciples of the Buddha, if you want to talk about how hard it is, he says, imagine 2 worlds. One world is defiled, meaning ran, it's stained. It's a stained world. One world is kind of like, remember, anybody old enough to remember New York City before it was cleaned up? There was a period in the yeah, said Phil. I grew up there. Are you kidding me? So yeah, you want to talk New York? Yeah, I'll talk New York, he says. So there was a time when Times Square, who was the mayor? John Lindsay was mayor, and Times Square is Manhattan, right? 42nd Street and Broadway and all was a mess. It was really a defiled world, right? There was danger to anybody who just kind of wound up walking down Times Square. Those who came looking for what Times Square offered, all of the shops and sights and sounds that were available, found what they were looking for, and everything was available, and it was murder capital of the U.S. and all. And then, remember John Lindsay, and who followed him? Who was the next? I forget, but it was during that time. Was it Lindsay who made the vow to clean it up, or was it? It was after him, right? Yeah, after him. John Lindsay was kind of the mayor when things. Anybody know who was the next mayor? No, what he was later. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, okay, it'll come to you. All right, so doesn't matter. Anyway, people said, let's clean up New York City. Sure enough, they did. And change was made, and the police started paying attention to things they'd been avoiding, overlooking. And New York City became a place where crime is not unknown, but it's much rarer. New York City, downtown, is a safer place than it was before. And it became the Big Apple again. And so, anyway, there's an example of a defiled world that once people started to made the resolve to take New York City back from lawlessness, that's all it took. And sure enough, it's a different city right now. So imagine two worlds. You could even think of it, let's not give it a name. Let's think of it as something closer. Take a side yard, a side lot, an empty lot, vacant lot. I grew up there, called vacant lots. Okay, maybe it's next door to you. I'll take. I grew up in an urban neighborhood in Toledo, Ohio, small Midwestern city, and next door was Bob and Barbara Frisbee. The Frisbees next door, and when my house was on the corner, and there was a vacant lot, 50-foot lot, these tiny urban lots, and then the Frisbees, and on down. And we were all good neighbors and had a great neighborhood. The kids, I grew up knowing that my yard was an entire block long, actually about 12 houses, where we just ran. There were no fences. And when we played guns, and we played all the different games that kids play with my buddies. And our yard was about 100 yards. We could do the front yard or the backyard. We just ran, and we didn't have to ask permission. Everybody's kitchen was open, and we knew each other. So interesting way to grow up. Anyway, the vacant lot between my house and the Frisbee's house was part of the year left fallow. Part of the year, soon as it turned cold enough, we turned the hose on the vacant lot and made it an ice hockey rink. Froze it. We would strap on our skates and play ice hockey, the vacant lot. It became a skating rink. And it snowed enough that we could shovel the snow and bank it up so it was hold the water. And Frisbees and we would flood it till the ice got thick enough, and we would go skate. And it was big enough that you could, get 5 or 6 strides around to go. My father grew up on hockey skates. My father grew up in Quebec, where hockey is not a joke. Hockey is as important to some people as football, soccer. I know people who grew up in Europe, Latin America, Central Europe, where football is, it's just you breathe football. And that's the way it is with ice hockey in Canada. So my dad would get on his heavy-duty skates, and my father on skates was a male ballet dancer. He was like a bird. It's as if he didn't really touch the ice, He just you could see his mind moved his skates, spinning, and my father was big, strong, 200-pound man, but on ice skates, just like a robin between the trees like this, We put them on, and we'd, fall a lot, but we could play hockey. Anyway, so that was winter, was the vacant lot during winter. But then comes March, and get a couple days of thaw, and you can't skate anymore because it's mushy. And then as soon as the snow and ice went away, Mr. Frisbee, Bob Frisbee, would get his hoe and his shovel and his rake, get out there and start to, and chop it all up, and then this is way before rototillers. It was all hand work. And then he would put the stakes down, run the strings, and put the mounds and the gullies, and then put the seeds down, and he would grow this amazing garden. Bob Frisbee's garden was the pride of a couple neighborhoods. People would come by at night, walk by just to look at it, because he grew 10 kinds of vegetables, and corn was as high as an elephant's eye by the 4th of July, and just superb stuff. And he grew enough in that small 50-foot by 150-foot garden to feed the neighborhood, And we'd go out and pick tomatoes for dinner, and then go out and pick cucumbers for dinner, and it was his garden, but he was generous with them. So we would watch what was an ice skating rink. Let's call that a defiled world, because why? There's nothing's growing there. And it would become a pure world by the addition of the effort and the seeds and nature. And Bob Frisbee, he worked he was an auto mechanic during the day, but at night he was a master gardener, and he understood how to do companion planting and just superb. So same piece of land, not that ice skating's defiled, but just the idea of worlds, right? In the winter, it's a world of ice and snow and people zipping around on ice skates, scoring goals with their hockey sticks. And during the summer, it's a source of nutrition. It's food. It's home for the birds and the animals that would come in. And as kids, we're like watching Bob Frisbee out there with his hoe, turning this piece of earth into doing what was all in the garden, but needed somebody to know how to bring it out. All that food was there in the ground, but it needed somebody to bring it out. Disciples of the Buddha, in terms of difficulty, it's like having two worlds, one defiled and one pure, in the same piece of land, right? It's difficult to go back and forth unless you, what? 唯除菩萨有大方便神通愿力. 3 things, right? The Bodhisattva who has what? 愿力, vows, just say intention, to turn it into a garden. And let's see, the strength of vows, 愿力, as well as 神通, which is psychic abilities. That's imagining, visualizing the ears of corn coming out of the side yard, and 大方便, and expedient means, which is just the knowledge. So you have the knowledge of gardening, you've got this vision of what is possible. We're going to have corn and beans, companion plants, right? We're going to have tomatoes and lettuce together. And over here we got rhubarb, lots of rhubarb. Back here, we're going to try this year some peppers that he didn't try before. And in the back, flowers. Got marigolds around there because the bugs don't like marigold smell. So the marigolds are the edge, And so it's like, that's very amazing. He's got psychic abilities. He's got vows to do this. And then the expedient skills, which means knowing when, knowing how much, and knowing the time, right? He's got the timing, he's got the place, and the opportunity. So what was an ice hockey rink becomes this world of growing things. And I used to go out at night at sunset. And Toledo, it's funny, California, came to California from Ohio. There's no insects in the air here. Near Lake Erie, where I grew up, near the Great Lakes, you go out knowing that you're going to get bitten by umpteen kinds of mosquitoes, and there are fireflies. I haven't seen fireflies in the Bay Area. Anybody have fireflies? They're not part of the California ecostructure somehow. But in northern Ohio, northwestern Ohio, in the summer, it goes blink, blink, right? There, we got a firefly right beside Sally right there. It's blinking in sympathy. How about that? blink, like that. And it's a lightning bug, otherwise known as a firefly, right? We call them lightning bugs. And we would go out with the jar and catch them in the jar and look at him. And my mother would say, "Now let it go. You played with it enough. Let it go." We'd let the firefly go. And I'd sit there just at sunset when the lightning bugs start to come out and feel kind of like the engine of the earth turning around and generating all this stuff, with Bob Frisbee being the expedient for nature to do what it did. And that was such a joyful moment as a kid, as like an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old, just to just sit there and on the grass that I cut for 25 cents, sit there on the lawn next to the side lot and Mr. Frisbee's garden and watch this stuff grow. And of course, when you're watching, it's not growing, but it is. But you come back in the morning when the dew is still out there, sun is just barely up, and it's grown that much overnight. The corn is that much bigger, and the beans have come out, and the pumpkin flowers are now like this, and oh my goodness, what an experience to see this garden with nature and the expedient of Bob Frisbee's psychic abilities and vows. We're going to have a garden. Turn this into the pride of the neighborhood, truly something to see. And he did it without, he just did it. He just loved it. And some people would come by and he would talk garden, Well, next year maybe we're going to try some different kinds of tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes. Yeah. I got the Burpee catalog, and we're going to pick out some special ones next year, said Bob Frisbee, with his Midwestern accent. So, yeah, pretty amazing. So, the Bodhisattva is not growing vegetables, he's growing wise living beings. He's gardening the mind. And it takes the vows to say, I'm going to end suffering for people I am related to, which is everybody, not just people, for all living beings. I'm going to do that. And I understand how, that is to say, I've got access to these living beings. I can see their thoughts. Shantong, he sees past the surface. And he also has expedient skills. I'm going to do whatever it takes to teach them how to wake up so that they can open their eyes in the land of the blind. So that's the analogy. And what's interesting about this is the notion of defiled world and a pure world. And we just had last week I talked about the fifth ground, actually 2 weeks ago, where the Bodhisattva, in his training, this is an earlier stage, he needs to learn how the world works so he can teach. In that fifth ground, the Bodhisattva learns everything there is to learn of worldly knowledge, because he's going to need it. He's going to need it. He learns language arts. He learns law and patterns of society. He learns medicine. He learns arts and crafts. And he learns Dharma, world transcending abilities of humanity, how to teach people. Those are called the Wu Ming Xue, the fivefold curriculum, the 5 sciences. And so he's in there. Bodhisattva's out there in the world, gardening. It's not that he's in a cave somewhere or, in an ivory tower. And what is this? This is the Mahayana. This is the larger vehicle. This is the Bodhisattva path where your skill is not measured in um, how well you wear the outfit, how well you talk the talk. It's how deep is your compassion and your connection to people and other beings like you. So that's what always brought me back to this. Okay, so far so good. Disciples of the Buddha. 佛子菩萨诸地一复如是，有杂然横，有清净横，是二中间难可得过。唯除菩萨有大愿力，方便智慧，乃能得过。Disciples of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva's grounds are the same way, in that they include defiled practices and pure practices, which are difficult to cross between. Only a bodhisattva who commands the strength of great vows and expedient wisdom is able to cross between them. Okay. So, if it wasn't true, then there would be a whole lot more bodhisattvas around. If it wasn't true that these practices are hard to cross between, there would be lots of Buddhas. But there aren't that many Buddhas, there aren't that many people with genuine selflessness and altruism, because this is hard to do. People call you a loser. You don't get out, you don't go along with the crowd in doing what everybody does, because it's easy to lose your way in the defiled practices. It's easy to forget the pure practices. By the way, are the windows shut? It's getting kind of chilly. Maybe somebody might want to shut those windows. I see people bundling up here. Thanks, Bill. So, yeah, there we go. Great. Coming back and forth between pure practices and defiled practices. It could be as simple as having a beer with the buddies at the pub. Why not? Well, because the bodhisattva is a bodhisattva, why can't he? Well, because if you get drunk, if the alcohol in your bloodstream influences your clarity, you're going to still have to say things. You're going to still have to do things. You're going to have to still think the right thoughts so you can respond to the people you're with at the right time in the right way. And while they might like you more for having had a beer with them, kind of, oh yeah, he's a regular guy, meanwhile, the suffering they experience and the potential for you to help them recognize how much it hurts to be confused is limited if you're just a regular guy, Instead, if you can be with people, sympathize with them, and hold on to your standards and say, no, actually, how about a ginger ale? I'm good, thanks. I'll take a sparkling water so it looks carbonated, right? Give me a 7-Up, or I'm not doing it, Nope. Say, nope, been there, done that, 10 years clean, right? People respect that. It's now no longer hip to be a messy, sloppy drunk. And it's cool to say, actually, you know, ever since I've been with my group, don't go there now. Done that. Know what that's all about. I'm clean. I'm 5 years, not a drop. People go, yeah, I really should. Could you introduce me to your group? Right? So that's the difference. And to be able to say, no, man, I'm happy to drink with you. Let's drink here. I'll refill my ginger ale. I'll have a second. I'm buying ginger ale for everybody. Okay, cool. So the bodhisattva has to hang on to that. And all the social pressure is to be like the gang, Why not, man? Just get a room in Las Vegas for Christmas vacation with the office. Why not? Yeah, include me. No, Or if you go to Las Vegas, what do? You stay in your room? Everybody else is down there, enjoying what Las Vegas offers. Not that there's anything wrong with what Las Vegas offers. Not that there's anything wrong with beer and drinking with the buddies. It's not that Buddhists put themselves as the measure of what's right and wrong. It's that the Bodhisattva made some decisions early on and said, there's confusion and there's clarity. I've tasted them both. I prefer clarity. Because in the end, we're still responsible. Children, to a certain point, always assume dad's going to cover it, right? Our parents are going to swoop in and make it all okay. We're not responsible as kids until some point something comes crashing down. Sometimes it's off to college, right? Everybody pushed you through the gate to get you into college, but for the first time, you're out from under mom and dad's roof. And those first semester grades come in, and you were drinking too much with your buddies. You were partying too much, and you got all C's. And you get called into the counselor's office. Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, you need to make some decisions about whether you are going to continue into the second semester or you're going to lose your scholarship and we're going to send you home, right? And you make a decision whether or not you're going to continue. And that's often like the moment when, after you've got out from underneath your parents' roof, where you decide who's responsible, who's really responsible. Okay, my moment. I'm just, my analogy, my little picture here is drawn from life. I had been studying Chinese for 2 years in high school before I graduated. Graduated high school, and somebody said, wow, there's a really, really good language program in Vermont, Middlebury College summer language session. So maybe you could go, and here's a fellowship you can apply for. The government will pay for it. They wanted Chinese speakers, so it was a title, National Defense Foreign Language Fellowship for people who wanted to go for summer semester. I applied for it, got it. Went to Middlebury College for their 10-week summer Chinese language intensive. It was the second year. The year before was the first time that Middlebury had offered Mandarin. They had French, Spanish, Italian, German, Russian, all offered on campus. They, the year before, had started Chinese. And everybody who had entered those were 8-week programs. The Chinese was 10 weeks. It takes longer. And anybody who was in the French, Spanish, Italian, German, and Russian programs, and now the Chinese program, wrote their name on the pledge at the first day of school that they would speak nothing but the language of their school for the duration of their 8 weeks or 10 weeks. If you spoke English or any other language other than the one of your school, out you go. It was maximum immersion. That was the way Middlebury did it. No compromise. We throw you out if we catch you breaking your pledge. You will speak the language of your school for the duration of the program. That's the way it works. And so pretty intense, right? It's a very cool Chinese language. And if you're a beginning Chinese language speaker, 请你把面包给我, you know, pass the bread, you know. And you can't say very much for the first 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of your school. The last couple of weeks, you kind of get with the program. But if you go to the beach, you go to Mount, Lake Musalak, or was Lake, I forget the name of the lake. You're speaking Pidgin Chinese. You go into the town, to the bar. The bar was called the Alibi. If you go into the Alibi, you better not fraternize with the cute Italian school kids over at the next table. You better stick to your Pidgin Chinese. So, okay, there I am. I show up, and the program was joint sponsored by Harvard and Princeton. The faculty, the Middlebury Summer Language School was all Harvard, Princeton. I think one professor came from Yale. Harvard, Princeton faculty. And Princeton, Professor Chen Daduan, Da Jiao Shou, was the coordinator. And of course, they recruited heavily from Ivy League because it was Middlebury. And there was one fellow from University of California, Berkeley, John Fong, and there was me, fresh out of high school. I hadn't even enrolled in my first year of college. I was going to a little liberal arts school in Michigan. So everybody was older than I was, and they were already, you know, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Columbia, Swarthmore, Oberlin college students, and I was a high school kid. And I came in thinking I could speak Chinese. I'd had 2 years in high school, and I was like, you know. And I was this punk high school kid, and these were, you know, suave, snappy Ivy League juniors and seniors by and large. And so I came in, and clearly, while my two professors at Devobus High School in Toledo had given us a foundation in reading Chinese characters and a sense of the bopomorpho de to no le, you know, still they hadn't emphasized tones. I had not learned. Ma, 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 neutral tone. Couldn't distinguish. And I hadn't learned to say zhi, chi, shi, ri, ji, qi, xi, ge, ke, he. You know, I couldn't say those things clearly, but I had already learned some habits, bad Chinese habits. Okay, so I came in, and it became clear that I was a bozo. I didn't know what I thought I knew, and what I did know, I learned incorrectly. So but I had been a big fish in a small pond. Suddenly at Middlebury, I'm a very small fish in a big pond. And I'm showing off my incorrect Chinese. And I got shunned by all my classmates. It's like, you know, he doesn't know what he thinks he knows. And so after 3 weeks, I found myself alone and confused, and I didn't have the study habits of a, you know, Harvard junior or a Princeton senior, and I was drowning. And I was hanging on to my pledge. I wasn't speaking English, but my Chinese was wrong. So Miss Diana May, a professor at Brown, to whom I will be forever indebted, pulled me over one day and said, "Mr. Clowery," she said, "you have potential, but you need to unlearn everything that you thought you knew about Mandarin Chinese. I will meet with you for an extra hour every day and correct your mistakes if you are willing to make the change that you need to make. I believe in the time we have left, there is hope for you. We can, because you have basically a good ear and you're willing to learn, but you have to let go of your incorrect knowledge of Chinese and start over. Are you willing? And I was like, okay, I will. She said, very good, let's try. And so I did. She threw me a life preserver, in the boat, the round thing that keeps you from drowning when you're overboard. She threw, and I came to her office. Now, at Middlebury, it was 8 hours a day, including 3 hours in the language lab. 3 hours with these headphones on every single day, because you got 100 characters, 100 Chinese characters, fresh every day to memorize. And you had a chapter of a text called Guo Yu Ru Man, Mandarin Primer. So, because the faculty were so good, Professor Chun, Professor May, and Jamie Pusey, and Professor Yu, and all of these, and Zhao, all these professors, superb teachers, the best. And the text was really good. And the system was tonal spelling, 国语罗马字, which was the best way to learn it. And Miss May, Diana May, took me under her wing and was brutal. She was fierce. And she would say, wrong, say it again, Ma, that's good, correct. Ma, ma, ma. And she would drill me. And I would, and bit by bit, I reprogrammed my ear. And there was one friend, John Fong. John Fong was this San Francisco ABC who went to Berkeley, and I didn't know anybody from California at that point. I was a high school kid in Toledo, right? John Fong, he was cool. John Fong drove a Porsche, and he had dark glasses that he wore all the time, and he had a way of tossing his hair back, and he would go, California cool, and he'd go, you're all right. You'll make it. Come on for a ride, in Chinese. 你可以啊，来，这样, I'm like, thank you. Because he was my buddy, and he would he wasn't an Ivy League guy. He was a public school, Cal, Berkeley, and so that's right. Come on. So John was very cool. I'd love to find John Fong again. Anyway, so after week 7, I had got my solid tones, and I had learned how to say zhi, chi, shi, from ji, qi, xi. And because of Diana May, I had relearned, I reprogrammed. And sure enough, by the last 3 weeks, I could come into the class with confidence. And it took somebody to throw me that life preserver and say, really look deeply at what you have learned, see if it's solid, hang on to what's solid, throw away the rest. It's not helping you, right? And she pulled me out of a defiled world into a pure world. And if she had not extended that invitation to me, I wouldn't have made it. And the thing that carried me through to MA, through BA, MA, and then to a doctorate, Chinese language, I wouldn't have learned. It was such a positive experience. I came back the next summer to Middlebury for a second summer. And that was such a positive experience that I went on to Donghai my third summer. In between junior and senior year, I went to Donghai University in Taiwan, Donghai Daxue. And the fourth summer, I went back to Middlebury for the first year of Japanese. So I spent 3 summers at Middlebury and had a very positive, wonderful learning experience there, including a summer in Taiwan. So one kind-hearted professor who saw potential in me made all the difference in my experience as an undergraduate, and gave me the foundation in something I could do. I was a total washout in math and science, but languages I could handle. And so I'm forever grateful to Miss Diana Mei Sure was her name, for giving me that foundation. And because Professor Chen Daduan, following along with Zhao Yanren, Professor Zhao, Y.R. Zhao's Mandarin primer, 10 weeks of Chinese, the first 7 weeks were devoted to foundation, right? Foundation is and bo po mo fo. And they drilled us and drilled us and drilled us and drilled us. And I, since then, have taught a large number of beginning Mandarin classes at CTDB and in various monasteries. And if people can hear the difference between a palatal and a retroflex, the palatal is the palatal is ji, the retroflex is zh. If they can hear that sound, they can speak Chinese. If they don't get that difference, it's all they're never going to get it, right? And people hear me and they go, "Wow, you sound like you're from Beijing." You know, I don't have a Taiwanese Mandarin accent. I don't. I don't sound like my Taiwanese friends. I sound as if I learned my Chinese from somewhere else, right? From Beijing or from northern China. Because why? Y.R. Zhao's book, taught by Chen Daduan, who put out the second version of Mandarin Primer, was a good method, a solid foundation method. And boy, oh boy, I am, as I say, if it weren't for that one kind teacher who reached her hand out to a struggling, drowning student, I would have drowned, no doubt. So anyway, the Bodhisattva says, yeah, here we are in birth and death, and I see what I can offer you, expedient skills, knowing how and when, and knowing, and I was, at the time, I was arrogant. I thought I knew how to speak Chinese because in Toledo, there were only a handful of us who had been taught Mandarin. How many white guys can speak any Chinese at all? Very few in Toledo in 1960. So I thought I was hot stuff. Got to the big pond. I couldn't speak Chinese. I spoke really good Chinese for Toledo, where there aren't any Chinese. Go to Middlebury where there are, hotshots, and you don't count. And I had to let go of that. Miss May knew how to get through my arrogance. And also John Fong, with his kindness, willing to be my friend when nobody else would. I was arrogant little kid, high school kid. And boy, oh boy, made all the difference. So the Bodhisattva says, the Bodhisattva's grounds are the same. They include defiled practices and pure practice, which are hard to get across and go back and forth. Only a Bodhisattva who commands the strength of great vows and expedient wisdom can go back and forth. So we have these teachers who are determined to teach American college kids how to speak Chinese, and they know how much and when, and their modeling is solid and stable. Middlebury College was a wonderful experience for me. I mean, I think of those 10 weeks, enough that I went back 3 times. And luckily I got fellowships to go back. Otherwise, I couldn't have afforded it. But the U.S. government paid for that. National Defense Foreign Language Title IV or something like that was funds so that America could have more Chinese speakers, Chinese and Russian, and at the time Arabic as well. I think Russian was a big one because we were locked in a struggle with the great communist menace, So, so let's see. Moving on here. 解脱乐菩萨言：佛子此七地菩萨为是然恒恒为是净恒。Moon Liberation Bodhisattva asked, disciple of the Buddha, are a bodhisattva's practices on the 7th ground defiled or pure? Okay, what's a defiled practice? Think about that. What's the difference between one or the other? What's the difference between a garden or an ice rink? Well, one is timed to the winter. It's the same space, the same geographical coordinates. If you were on a satellite, you said Bob Frisbee's side lot, identical coordinates, right? Latitude and longitude. But no, it's not. It's an ice rink. Oh, come back in 6 months. Oh my God, look at the corn. It's way green and tassel ears of corn. It's an ice rink. No, it's not. It's a garden. So it depends on when you're looking, right? Now, both are pure. An ice rink is not defiled, but it's talking about how the bodhisattva is going to teach, how he's going to appear to teach. Miss May was exactly the person that I needed to cross me over. If she hadn't done that, gone. And yet the faculty was the same otherwise. The opportunity was there, but I had missed it. I was not in sync with where I needed to be until, with her expedient skills, she brought me over. So on the 7th ground, okay, can I take us one step and a sneeze here? Excuse me. A couple times as we've been approaching this, I took us through the 6 previous steps. Let me do that one more time to get clear here. Ground 1 to ground 5, anybody can experience based on the paramitas, right? Generosity, precepts, patience, vigor, meditation, and samadhi. Learning to really still. It's the 6th step where everything changes. You experience emptiness here at stage 6. The bodhisattva, you recall what they were talking about was the 12 links of conditioned arising, pratitya samuppada, where the self, me, and the world around me both break up. And you experience it. You're there, meditating. And what does it take to know the world? Your eyes, your ears, your nose, your tongue, your body, and your mind. And because you're sitting there, things start to heat up. You get hot, literally physically hot, right? And you generate this heat as you're meditating. And not only the things you see start to transform, but the things you see them with start to transform. The body, the eyes are the organ of seeing. Well, the organ of seeing changes, and the things you see, solid and space, what is the air and obstruction, suddenly shift. The air becomes solid and things become vibrant, buzzing molecules, liquid, right? And then it changes again, right? So ears transform and the things you hear. Nose, tongue, body transforms and the things it smells, tastes, and feels. And the mind. Consciousness goes. So at that point, the bodhisattva experiences where things come from, right? Ignorance, activities, consciousness, name and form, 6 sense organs, right? Remember those links? And at that point, what became a very ordinary, normal paramita path, giving, virtue, precepts, patience, vigor, samadhi, everything now is pixie dust. Up in the air. It's all up for grabs. The bodhisattva doesn't stop there. Although every time you meditate, stuff empties out. It's not what you used to know. Everything you used to know is now wrong. There's not only that. It's both solid and a buzzing cloud of energy, karma. Creating things that stick together until the karma is done and then things fall apart. Karma is the glue. Activity is the glue that holds reality together until you stop the karma and then reality goes, and you're sitting there going, oh my God. But because you took every step of the way, you're prepared. You're solid in your jie li, your precept strength. In other words, your right and your wrong is solid. You're not whatever dude. You got this foundation in virtue. So with that foundation, you can launch into emptiness and easily come right back. And that's why this path continues. Okay, you dissolve and yet you don't get confused. The world dissolves and yet you're not confused because you're solid in your practice. Why is Chan meditation at this level such a difficult path? It's because when the world around you and the self get all wonky, if you lose your way, you'd be over, you'd be done. This is just first base for the Bodhisattva because the Bodhisattva has to come back to the 7th step where we are right now, which is what? Learning how to teach. When the self dissolves, you can become other and still come back to yourself. Right? Does that make sense? In order to find great compassion, the Bodhisattva has to dissolve. The self has to go away so that you can feel with others and then find a way to teach them. That's the expedient skill, the power of vows, and the psychic abilities that allow you to see beyond what normal senses show you. So that's helpful in seeing how the Bodhisattva got here. He or she is about to be able to take on other forms, expediently to teach as the time reveals itself, the opportunities, and then come right back, not get lost in it. Hard to do. Hard to, walk through the crowded marketplace and not get hooked out by your senses. Okay? I know I've told this story before, but I was a monk for 18 years when I decided to go back and get my PhD at UC Berkeley's neighboring seminary, Graduate Theological. Same campus, Cal, where I'd spent 6 years getting my MA. And now I'm getting my PhD, but I've been a monk for 18 years. So I had practices that were well established. And I would go up Bancroft, right, around the campus, up Bancroft. Where does that take you? Takes you to Sproul Plaza. Okay, well, GTU is all the way across campus. It's on the north side. You have to go through the north gate, up Euclid, to Holy Hill, to GTU. So I had to cross the entire campus and not get hooked into the madness that is Sproul Plaza at noon, right? Anybody been up on campus recently around 12 noon? Sproul Plaza is one of the world's better circuses, right? There's dong, 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 dong. The conga row. There's 9 conga drums, dong, 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 and everybody dancing, dreads flying in the air. There's the Christian preachers out to either send you to hell or to save your soul. Sometimes you can't tell which is which. They're just shouting. There's all the taco trucks and the falafel trucks and the big cookie trucks. And then there's tabling. And there are 50, count them, 50 Chinese Christian clubs registered with the Office of Social Activities, all there to save you. Chinese Christian, never mind the non-Chinese Christian clubs, right? There's the Hong Kong Students for Jesus. There's the Taiwan, Christian Union. There's the Chinese Christian Alliance. 50 registered. You have to register if you're going to table, right? So they're all out there saving your soul in Chinese. And so then there's, folks enjoying and the fragrance of toasting leaves, floating around. And then there's buskers, how many roads must a man walk down? And there's people recruiting you for the latest weird cult, taking you, just come for our weekend up in Mendocino County and free food, and, we'll drive you up and bring you back. And you don't want to get on that bus unless you really don't care, And remember all the cults that recruited kids off that campus and then went out and made the headlines. So anyway, everything. And a lot of sincere students who are just trying to get from, Sproul to get to an L Hall through the Sather Gate. And so here I am, in my robe with my beads in my hand and my backpack, and I'm going through Namo Hula Dano Dola Ye Namo Uli Ye Polu Jedi Shabolaya Bodhisattva Ye Mohazatopi, timing my footsteps to the Great Compassion Mantra and trying to just be enjoying. I love Sproul Plaza. It's cool. I've spent 16 years of my life there. And yet I know that if all I have to do is let my eyes and my ears look a couple seconds too long, by the time I get to Cal, to GTU, my energy is going to be all gone, because I'm holding all of the meditation that I did that morning and that week. And when I get to campus, I'm going to be student teaching up at GTU, or I'm going to be, taking a seminar in Old Testament, and I need to keep mindful. So I would recite the Great Compassion Mantra with my beads and walk happily through, and then go, past the libraries and down through the Redwood Glen, and then up past Evans Hall and Tolman Hall, and get out to Hearst and Euclid, north side. Cross, go down past the Brood Awakening, GTU's coffee shop, and Laval's Pizza, and up around the corner and up to campus. And so I remember standing there at the North Gate, waiting for the red light at Hearst and Euclid, and standing there like that, and light changes green, and halfway through the intersection, this woman, another faculty or someone, stops me right in the middle of the intersection and says, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to disturb you, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for reminding us what is really important." And I'm going, "Oh, you're welcome." Okay, keep on going. So whatever, I think mostly I was invisible, because I was happy. I wasn't scrunched up like this. I wasn't, stay out, don't bother me. It was like, no, I'm part of Sproul Plaza, and I'm sure people were happy seeing a monk walk through too. But it's like, okay, let the mantra carry me from one world to the next, or to keep me in one world, although I'm passing through an entirely different world. And all the worlds within worlds that is Sproul Plaza at noon, right? Any day, tomorrow, Monday, go up at noon and you'll see it. That's right. It's part of the America's #1 public university, I might add. And yet the mantra could carry me across the campus to the other side. And when I put the beads down, it was like, okay, I'm ready. My mind is here, still. And I hadn't lost it in the way. So are those practices defiled or pure? My experience is they are neither. It depends on your intention, and it depends on the time. So now, if I had been a graduate student walking through Sproul Plaza, not yet a monk, not yet a Buddhist, and I had been holding myself aloof from what was going on, that would have been weird. That would have been unnatural. And when I was an undergraduate or a graduate student, not yet a monk, not yet a Buddhist, I enjoyed the heck out of Sproul Plaza. You know, I was part of every scene. The movie festivals, right? Cinema festivals, the Pacific Film Archives, and the falafel trucks. Had lunch every day at a falafel truck, and just would drop money in the guitar case of the buskers, and just had a great time. But later my intention changed. I needed to get across campus with my mind intact, all my energy still there, because I was going to be teaching my seminar. And so that was another time, a different time. And the mantra carried me across. So those practices are, it's depends on the time and the intention to be either pure or defiled. Cars, automobiles, I honestly could do, if somebody told me that starting tomorrow, automobiles were gone, there was no more private automobiles, I would be okay with that. Every time every weekend that I'm here, I jump in a car and drive 100 miles, 110, 112 miles, and continue my work at City of 10,000 Buddhas. If somebody said, no, you can go there, but you got to walk, I would say, right on. I will be at City of 10,000 Buddhas in, let's say, January, and I'll start now, and maybe in December I'll teach in Santa Rosa, but I'm going to get there, and when I get there, I've earned my trip to City of 10,000 Buddhas. I'm there. Let's look into a sutra. 3 months later, I'm going back to Berkeley, and I'll get back to Berkeley in July. What's that? Yeah, that's and I would, that'd be worth it. That'd be the right pace. Now, that's talking as somebody who covered ground on foot. Took me 2.5 years to get from South Pasadena to Ukiah. So I could do that, and I wouldn't miss the cars a bit. Now, I'm a monk. I'm not trying to earn a living. If I was earning a living, I probably wouldn't be so sanguine about, oh yeah, let's get rid of cars. But I could definitely see the advantage. Cars, mind you, if you have things to deliver, if you need to get somebody to a hospital, if you are a news person bringing the news to people, you want that car. You want to get there now, right? So in the process of the convenience of rapid transportation, we are willing to put up with 40,000 deaths by motor vehicle a year nationwide. That's an acceptable number for the convenience of our cars. How about that? Defiled or pure? Right? I'm aware every time I'm in a car that it's a paint stripe keeping me from a head-on collision. And I know that I have been behind the wheel when I'm drowsy. I've been behind the wheel when I have had no business being behind the wheel, but I had to get there, so I drove. I shouldn't have been driving. I know there are people on the other side of the freeway coming right at me at high speed who should not be behind the wheel. And that was me at certain times, right? And yet we all do it. So 40,000 people a year is an acceptable number of deaths for the convenience of having a car. What about that? Pure or defiled? Yeah. So it's not the Dharma, it's the intention and the way we use it. So just to say, that's that's a story. Here's another example. That's not the best example, probably. What about religions? Let's get really close to the bone. Okay, if the prince, if Siddhartha Gautama had been told that he was going to, what he did, his decision to get up from the tree and start to speak, was going to lead to a huge institution called Buddhism, the Buddhist church, right? With all of its power and authority and all of these people, would he have done it? I wonder. Institutions can't change. And when I go to Taiwan, I visit the Buddhist church in Taiwan. And there's one place where I go, it's all nuns. And the nuns have created this wonderful university. But the Buddhist part of it has trouble finding its roots because of the institution, right? Every religion begins with the pure intention of ending suffering, of salvation, of bringing blessings and goodness to people. And what happens? As soon as you have 10 followers, you have to feed them. They have to have a roof over their heads at night. You have to pay the bills so the lights go on. You have to get rid of have to empty the toilets. You have to keep them, institution. Within the Buddha's lifetime, he had 1,250 disciples that he had to feed, So what is pure and what is defiled? Not to say the institution is defiled. That's not my point. But it's to say, what does this mean? When something that is potentially as wholesome as people devoting their lives to the investigation of the spirit and bringing goodness and blessings to people, saving souls, how do you keep that goodness when it's institutionalized into systems? That's hard. Somehow religions have to reinvent themselves regularly in order to keep the spirit alive. So here we have a religious pioneer, a pilgrim, Master Hsuan Hua, our teacher, who grew up in a religious system that suffered a change in 1949 when another, you could say, quasi-religious system called Marxism took over China and Buddhism underwent radical shifts. Master Hua went to Hong Kong for 10 years, reinvented his version of Buddhism, went to Australia, came back to Hong Kong, and came to the US and said to us, be clear about this. What I am teaching you is not Chinese Buddhism. It's not Indian Buddhism either, he said. And it's not Thai, it's not Burmese, it's not Laotian, it's not Sri Lankan, it's not Korean or Japanese Buddhism. What I am teaching you is wisdom that can do away with the name Buddhism entirely. I'm teaching you wisdom. I'm teaching you the teaching of living beings, 众生教. I'm teaching you depth psychology, the deepest kind, from someone who saw his mind from the primal level all the way out to the branch tips. He said, be clear about that. So what is that? That's a reformer. That's a critic. Shifu reformed the institution of Chinese Buddhism. And I think that's one of the beauties, you could say, one of the strongest points of the Buddhist tradition is that it regularly reinvents itself. Because why? You don't need the structure. What you need is a calm, concentrated mind that encounters the Dharma and transforms. You cultivate the human mind to create the Buddha mind. And people do that time and time again in a new place, in a new environment, and voila, here's the Buddha Dharma in the West. So, pure and defiled is the question. The institution, just by the nature of its size, just has to structurify, has to solidify, has to calcify. And as soon as you do, you got people fighting for forgetting the Dharma and doing what people do. It goes from sublime to ordinary with every generation of institution, right? So that's just another example of what does Muna Liberation Bodhisattva mean when he asks the question, are a bodhisattva's practices on the seventh ground defiled or pure? We will find out next week the answer to that question, okay? And you can see, we added a page to our booklets, but here's the Buddha Dharma. Here's the seventh ground, defiled or pure, right? So we need to add some pages here, and we're going to be done with a seventh ground. Then we're going to take this volume, archive it, and start fresh with the eighth ground. So we've been adding our pages, and we're going to start with the eighth ground, a new booklet. So we'll continue next week at that point and discover more about this binary system that the Bodhisattva is determined to take out, to teach when the time is right. Let's transfer the merit for people who want to finish us a unit of sutra lecture and then giving away the goodness of that lecture. The transference of merit is on your chanting sheet. Does your sutras come with chanting sheets? Some of you have them. We didn't pass out songbooks. That's okay. Don't worry about that. Let's just make a wish for however you want to send out your merit. May every living be our minds as one and radiant with light. Share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds away to bring compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. that be so. Wanted to once again express my gratitude at the opportunity to play such a wonderful, responsive instrument, handcrafted by our Dharma friend Fabrizio Alberico. And I've passed this guitar around to a lot of folks who know guitars, and they all go, "Whoa, that's a responsive instrument," and it is indeed. I'm just delighted to have the blessings to play it. Speaking of which, with Bob Dylan's Nobel Prize, even saying that, with Bob Dylan's Nobel Prize now well debated around the world, I realize that I'm carrying in my mind a wealth of folk songs. I was part of the folk boom in the 60s and 70s and absorbed all kinds of songs from a very specific niche of music. Not for everybody, but I definitely got that. I was absorbing, it was timed right for me to absorb a lot of songs. And I have probably a couple hundred folk songs that I can sing at the drop of a guitar. Not that you want to drop your guitar, not that you want to encourage me to sing them either. So, but it would be good, I thought, to share that because it's, for what it's worth, it's a niche, and I've got those, got that Dharma transmission for sure. And the other day at lunch, we were watching a Peter, Paul, and Mary 25th anniversary KQED concert DVD. And there were Peter, Paul, and Mary, Peter Yarrow, Mary Travers, and Noel Paul Stuckey singing these songs that were part of my adolescence. And I said, "Oh, Puff the Magic Dragon." And Heng Sure went, like, "You haven't heard Puff the Magic Dragon?" "No. Nope. How can you live and not know Puff the Magic Dragon?" And I asked Mr. Yap, "Mr. Yap, do you know Puff the Magic Dragon?" Mr. Yap went, "Is that a song?" he said. "Is it a dragon?" "No, it's a song." "I haven't heard it," he said. "Okay, you guys got to hear Puff the Magic Dragon." And so so I thought, Saturday night. How many people do not know Puff the Magic Dragon? You could admit it. It's okay. Okay, a couple more hands. There we go. All right. So we're going to learn Puff the Magic Dragon. It's a sing-along. You will sing along. You will sing along. And then they went into another song that is, we absorbed in the other song, power of this song. It's an anti-war song voted by some entity as one of the 20 most influential anti-war / peace songs in the world. It's called "Where Have All the Flowers Gone?" Written by Pete Seeger after he read short stories by a Russian author called "And Onward Flows the Don River, Silent Flows the Don." He had read that book and found this powerful logic in the circular logic of this song. And it's also as a sing-along. We're going to sing that first before we visit Puff the Magic Dragon. And it goes like this. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Now, originally it says, when will they ever learn? It's more powerful when we reflect. When will we ever learn? Where have all the young girls gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young girls gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young girls gone? Gone to young men, everyone. When will we ever learn? Where have all the young men gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young men gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young men gone? Gone to soldiers, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone? Gone to graveyards. You've heard the song. Tam's heard the song. Everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time ago. Hold the answer, Tam. Where have all the graveyards gone? Gone to anybody? Flowers. Everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Where have all the flowers gone? And we're back. Okay? And you can see people who unwittingly are singing along with you happily, and when you drop that last line on them, people go. The logic of going from flowers to flowers and the futility of warfare. Are we in the business of growing flowers? Uh-huh. Who profits? War makers. Right? Military corporations. I was reading today at lunch that the new U.S. military budget, in a cost-saving strategy, will probably discontinue the $40 billion aircraft carrier. We made it, $40 billion, but we'll probably, because the new warfare doesn't need an aircraft carrier that can be sunk by a single missile. $40 billion sinking beneath the waves. Instead, we're going to invest that $40 billion in stealth bombers, B-1s. We're not going to give the money back. We need stealth bombers to the tune of $60 billion. You go, wait a minute now, to eradicate hunger that actually people need when they're hungry around the world would cost probably $4 billion. But we'd rather, never mind. You all know. So. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all... We're going to put it up one whole step. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Join me. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Long time ago. Again. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls, pick them. Young girls, pick them, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Where have all the young girls gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young girls gone? Long time ago. Young men, where have all the young girls gone? On to young men, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Where have all the young men gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young men gone? Long time ago. Soldiers, right? Where have all the young men gone? On to soldiers, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. Graveyards, the soldiers gone. On to graveyards, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Here comes the peak verse. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time ago. Where have all the graveyards gone? Flowers, gone to flowers, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? Should we do it again? Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls have picked them, everyone. When will we ever learn? When will we ever learn? So that's the power of song. To be able to take something of ordinary words, girls, men, soldiers, graveyards and flowers, and weave something together that's new, and when we hear it, we never forget it. You go, yeah, that's true. And for what, Tim?
I heard that song the first time in 1960
Whoa.
at a Christmas party by the Catholic student, Vietnamese Catholic student in New York City.
Vietnamese Catholic students in New York City. It had just been recorded by the Kingston Trio at that time. It has since been recorded 50 times. It has been translated into 29 languages. And yeah, it's 1960. Hey, you're old. You're older than I am. Yeah. And you remember it to this day, right? Oh, yeah.
The girl, that same song is a friend of mine for quite a time.
Wow. There you go. Yeah. Lord have mercy. Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay. The second song is written by Peter Yarrow, Peter Paul and Mary. He wrote it. And it's very funny because Puff the Magic Dragon, for a long time, people thought it was an oblique reference to smoking marijuana. That the Magic Dragon was dope and that we were, advocating smoking marijuana. And Peter Yarrow says, it had no second meaning. It was about a dragon and a little boy. And the song is very poignant because it's the end of innocence. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea, frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Little Jackie Paper loved that rascal Puff and brought him string and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea, frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea, frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Together they would travel on a boat with billowed sail. Jackie kept a lookout perched on Puff's gigantic tail. Noble kings and princes would bow whenever they came. Pirate ships would lower their flags when Puff roared out his name. Oh, Puff the Magic Dragon. A dragon lives forever, but not so, little boys. Painted rings and giant's wings make way for other toys. One gray night it happened, Jackie Paper came no more, and Puff, that mighty dragon, he ceased his fearless roar. His head was bent in sorrow. Green scales fell like rain. Puff no longer went to play along the cherry lane. Without his lifelong friend, Puff could not be brave. So Puff, that mighty dragon, sadly slipped into his cave. Oh, Puff the Magic Dragon. And I've heard Peter Yarrow sing this song, and he said, "This song is designed to prepare young children for future trauma." Right? It's such a sad song. You know, it's about the end of innocence, not only for Jackie Paper, but for Puff the Dragon. So dragons rely on kids the way kids rely on dragons, you know. So, beautiful song. And it became one of Peter, Paul, and Mary's best beloved songs. And in the 25th anniversary concert, they sing it in Nashville. And they get a huge, huge standing ovation because there's a generation of young people in the 5,000 people in the audience who were raised on Puff the Magic Dragon and heard it first when they were 6, and then again when they were 9, and then again. And here they are, they're now grown up and they have their kids with them singing Puff the Magic Dragon to them for the first time. So this is one of those songs. It's this is an eternal song. So please join me in celebrating the end of innocence. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Little Jackie Paper loved that rascal Puff and brought him string and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. Oh, Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea, sing along, frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Together they would travel on a boat with billowed sail. Jackie kept a lookout perched on Puff's gigantic tail. Noble kings and princes would bow whene'er they came. Pirate ships would lower their flags when Puff roared out his name. Join me. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. A dragon lives forever, but not so, little boys. Painted wings and giant's rings make way for other toys. One gray night it happened, Jackie Paper came no more, and Puff, that mighty dragon, he ceased his fearless roar. His head was bent in sorrow, green scales fell like rain. Puff no longer went to play along the cherry lane. Without his lifelong friend, Puff could not be brave. So Puff, that mighty dragon sadly slipped into his cave. Oh, Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Together we should sing it. It's just a children's song, and if you do not know the words, you'd better learn them. Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. There you go. Hubba hubba. Yippee. Wasn't that painless? Nobody was harmed in the singing of that song, except the dragon's feelings. But dragons, you know, they live forever. So glad that you joined me in singing that fable. Okay, Tuesday night is Tion's, Tea and Dharma night at Tion's Tea Shop on 4th Street in Berkeley. Do come to join us at 7 o'clock. Our topic is there anything beyond happiness? Whoa. Most people in the world, I suspect, although we don't have an opportunity to ask them, but if we did, I suspect most people would probably say, when asked the question, what is life about? They would say, being happy. Probably the highest good. Nothing wrong with that. Buddhists, when asked that question, might say serenity is even higher than happiness. Why? Happiness don't last. Anytime you go trying to grab happiness, probably an unreliable goal to live your life seeking happiness, because it flits away like a butterfly. Serenity, however, anyway, I don't want to spoil it. Come and listen. Come and contribute your stories about how long happiness lasted. Right? Who was it? Donovan? Happiness runs, happiness runs. Happiness runs, happiness runs. Remember that song? That was Donovan, right? Happiness runs in a circular motion. Okay, so 7 o'clock, Tuesday night, Tea and Dharma. Come and join us. We'll see you there. Today's first inaugural class of our Chinese language through Buddhist ceremonies and calligraphy class had a dozen folks. I was upstairs. It must have been fun. There was a lot of laughter coming up through that floorboard. So Jin Forscher and Mr. Yap will be teaching that class next week as well. What else do we have to announce? The Guanyin session finished today up at CTDB. By all accounts, it was a tremendous experience. All right. Thank you for joining us online, all of you who are out there. How many people today, Jerry? 38. That's almost as many as we have here in flesh and blood. Gee, we are moving towards a virtual world, indeed. But the good part is you can come back and back online to YouTube Dharma Realm Live to see this show later, hear this lecture later. All right, see you next week. We're going to answer the question, what's the difference between defiled and pure bodhisattva practices? See you then. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Fang Guang Po Hua Yen Shi Hua Yen Hai Po Pu Sa